My name is Lena Morrow, I'm 29. I work as a social worker at a children's welfare agency in Boston. My brother Ethan was 6 years older than me, an architect, lived alone, never married, had a great house. After our parents died, he was the only anchor I had left in this world. The accident was 3 months ago, late night, rain so heavy it felt like the sky was dumping buckets. His car lost control on a highway curb and slammed into the guardrail. The police report said there were no skid marks, excessive speed, probably hydroplaning. Conclusion: accident. When I went to claim his belongings, the officer slid a small tray across the counter: apartment keys, phone, car keys. It was small, tarnished with age, but the edges were worn smooth and bright, like it had been held a lot. I stared at it for a long time. He'd never mentioned having a safe. 3 weeks after the funeral, I finally went to his apartment. Behind the bedroom closet there was a loose panel. I pushed it aside and found a safe recessed into the wall. Dark gray, about 20 inches squide, old brand, the dial engraved with the letters H&H. I inserted the little brass key, turned it, click. The door swung open. It was empty inside, no cash, no documents, no jewelry, just one folded piece of white notepaper sitting dead center. I unfolded it. The handwriting was Ethan's, just like the notes he used to scribble on his blueprints. The note said, "Don't believe anything I told you." I stood there in that bedroom, holding that paper, looking out at Boston's gray sky. His handwriting was so calm, like he was mentioning something ordinary. But my fingers were shaking. "Don't believe anything I told you." He gave me the key, and then he told me not to believe him. Why? Which words was he talking about? "I'm fine, work's going well," or every single thing he'd ever said to me while he was alive? Searched the safe again. Nothing. No explanation, no date. Just 7 words, like a door, but behind it, only a wall. I folded the note and put it in the inside pocket. My doorway was just a layer of paint, and underneath it, I had never scratched the surface. Ethan's phone had been held by the police for a while. When they returned it, I put it in a drawer and never dared to turn it on. That night I sat on my apartment floor, plugged it in, and powered it up. I stared at his lock screen photo appear. Archie scrambled on the couch, sunlight streaming passcode. I'd taken that photo, but the call lagged some mostly long climb before I entered his suppliers. But 2 numbers had shown up frequently over the past 6 months, at least 3 times a week. The contact names were D and G.
If I know who you are,
I
I'll
called
call
G back. No leave a message, no name, like a filter. I hung up without leaving a message. Then I tried D. No answer, no voicemail set up, just disconnected. I checked the carriers, both prepaid, no registered names. Why would an architect be in frequent contact with 2 untraceable numbers? I copied both numbers into my notebook and drew a question mark next to them. The next day, I went to his firm. A colleague handed me a cardboard box, sketch paper, markers, Arcid matchers, and at the bottom, I found a folded flyer, black and white thin paper, like it had been ripped off a copy machine. At the bottom, small print. So Ethan had never mentioned any support group. Never talked about his inner world. But this flyer had been tucked under a stack of drawings, the edges like it had been held a lot.
Hello, New Beginning Support Group. How did you hear about us?
My brother used to attend. I'm his sister.
What's your brother's name?
Ethan Morrow.
I'm sorry, we don't have any record of an Ethan Morrow. You might be mistaken.
But that pause said more than her words ever could. She knew the name. She just couldn't admit it. Wednesday night at 7 p.m. I went to Lincoln Community Center, an old brick building, senior center on the 1st floor, yoga studio on the 2nd. Room B was at the end of the hall, door closed, with a printed sign. I sat on a hallway bench for 20 minutes. At 7:23, the door opened and a man stepped out. Around 40, wire-rimmed glasses, gray sweater, looked like a college lecturer.
Are you here to pick someone up?
I wanted to ask about joining.
Do you have an appointment?
No. But my brother used to attend. His name was Ethan Morrow.
He looked at me for a few seconds. His face didn't move, but his eyes went from my face to my hands and back to my face. He was sizing me up.
Ethan was one of our Longdang members. He eventually stopped coming.
Why did he leave?
That was his personal decision. If you're interested in joining, we do new member evaluations every Wednesday. Just call me ahead of time. I'm Greg.
Greg. G. His voice matched the one from the voicemail exactly. I nodded and said I'd come. He turned and went back inside. The door closed. I stayed on that bench. Ethan came here every Wednesday night and told me he was working late. He lied to me. Don't believe anything I told you. He'd already told me from that safe. Every single working late was a lie. I walked out of the community center and stood under the streetlight. The rain had just stopped. The ground was wet. I remember the way Ethan would say working late tonight, don't wait up for dinner. So natural, so casual. When had he started? A year ago? 2? He'd sit in that room, listen to those people talk and come home like nothing had happened. And I'd be at home waiting, knowing nothing. I called to schedule the appointment. Greg said, "We'll do a simple interview, get to know your background and why you're here." I went. The roost time, room B's in his door, circle maybe 8 of them. No posters, no slogans on the walls. Just a whiteboard set.
Why are you here?
My brother came here. He died. I want to know what he went through here.
Your brother's departure had nothing to do with this place.
How do you know?
Because when he left, he was at peace. He said he found his answer. I don't know what it was, but it was his.
But everything he told me was a lie.
Maybe he was protecting you.
Protecting me from what?
Lena, New Beginning is about learning to live with who you are. Some people have a different psychological makeup. They don't need judgment. They need space.
Antisocial personality disorder.
You've heard of it.
I've heard of it. But I never thought my brother was.
He never said he was. He only said he came to understand.
Understand what?
Understand the impact of his actions on others. He wanted to know how not to hurt people.
I stopped. Ethan had never hurt anyone. He was gentle, quiet, kept to himself. But maybe that was the result of his effort. He'd spent all his time learning how not to hurt people. He'd learned in that room how to pass as normal. And then he'd come home and smile at me.
Can I join?
And no private contact with other members. Can you follow that?
Yes.
Then start next week, 7 o'clock, be on time.
I walked out with my hands in my pockets, my nails digging into my palms. I just passed the evaluation. I was one step closer to the chair Ethan used to sit in. Wednesday night at 7 p.m., I sat in one of the chairs in room B. Counting me, there are 7 of us in total. Each person has a different appearance, and Greg sits outside the circle like an onlooker. The others, 3 men, 3 women, ranged from 20s to 50s. They looked so ordinary. One woman in glasses was knitting. A guy in work pants was spinning a pen. I almost thought it was just a book club.
We have a new member today. Introductions, say what you want to share, first names only.
I've been here 2 years. I came because of my impulses. I used to have no control over them. Now I do.
Control over what?
Control over thoughts that could hurt people. I don't actually act on them, but they're there. I'm here to make sure they don't become actions.
My husband says I'm cold. I never knew how to care about others. I thought it was a flaw, but here I found out it's a structural issue.
I was called a freak in school. I wasn't sad, just wanted to know why I was different. Here, people don't think you're different.
Lena, I'm here because of my brother.
The atmosphere shifted subtly. Someone glanced at Greg. Greg's face stayed blank.
Lena, you're looking for answers, but they might not be what you expect.
I'm not expecting anything, I just want to know.
The group continued. They talked about impulse cycles, trigger scenarios, masking costs. Their vocabulary felt like a foreign language. Clinical, restrained, emotionless. But I knew what lay behind those words. The people in this room, including my brother, were learning how not to hurt people, because hurting people was their default setting. I sat among them, listening, and suddenly felt like he's there too. He was right next to me in that empty chair, silently listening to the same lesson.
After my third group session, I found more traces Ethan had left behind. In his old laptop there was an encrypted subfolder labeled New Beginning. The password was one I guessed the name of the first dog we had as kids. Inside were 6 document all-in-date topic notes, like a diary after every session. The earliest was from April, 2 years ago. I keep checking. Am I pretending to feel empathy? Answer, yes. I adjust my expressions based on reactions and mirror them. I've never felt real connection. Woman cut in line. My first instinct, but that's normal. But Greg says normal doesn't matter. Function does. 4th, 5th, 6th, each one shorter than the last, like he was saying less and less. Someone is watching me. I don't know who, but I'm ending this. Ending this. He used that word. Ending the group? Or ending something else? A week later, his car went off the highway. I closed the laptop, my palms covered in sweat. He'd come here to learn control, to learn not to hurt people, but he said someone was watching him. If he was seen inside the group, were the ones watching other members or something else? I reread that sentence. Someone is watching me. He was afraid, and what was I doing back then? I was texting him asking if he wanted hot pot on the weekend. He replied, sure. He said nothing.
One night after group let out, one night a K stopped me in the parking lot about your brother. There's something up there I want to tell you.
What?
Before he left, he'd found something in the group he shouldn't have. He said there are 2 layers at the surface port underneath it, something else.
What else?
I'm not entirely sure, but he mentioned practice. He said some members weren't just talking about controlling impulses. They were learning how not to be caught.
Not caught at what?
Doing what they want to do. Perfectly.
He got in his car and drove off. I stood in the lot, the streetlight reflecting off the wet pavement. Ethan had found the lower layer. He didn't write it in his notes, but he'd said it out loud to Kay. And then he said someone's watching me, and then he died. I thought, if Ethan really had discovered that this group was teaching people how to commit crimes perfectly, then his leaving was a threat. He knew things he wasn't supposed to know. And that line in his computer, someone's watching me, maybe it was his last pair of Alois V's cries for help. I went home had written, ending this in his last entry. Did he already know then that he didn't have much time left? Did I tell Greg what Kay had said? No. I knew Greg was G, the group's facilitator. If Kay was telling the truth, Greg had to know about the lower layer. He might have been the one who designed it. I decided to check Ethan's call record again. Besides G and D, there was one more number that had appeared in his last 2-month comping, lasting us only 17 seconds.
You've reached a secure line.
I'm Ethan Morrow's sister. What do you know?
I'm not who you're looking for, but your brother was right. Someone was testing a protocol. He'd already been tested. He failed.
Tested for what?
How not to get caught. He didn't pass, so he was removed.
How do you know?
Because I was one of the tested too. I passed. I'm alive. I left the group.
Can you tell me who you are?
No, but look up an accidental drowning from September 2019. It wasn't an
The
accident.
test ended. I looked up the news from September 2019. A 33-year-old man had drowned in a lake outside Boston. The report said he'd probably gotten cramps while night swimming.
The victim's name was Daniel Harris. I checked his background. He'd signed up for a psychological growth workshop at Lincoln Community Center. He hadn't drowned. He might have been removed too. I stared at the screen, my fingers cold. Ethan had found out. Daniel had found out. They were both dead. And now I was sitting in that same room, staring at that same wall.
I found Daniel Harris's sister, a woman named Amy, living in Connecticut. I called her and said I was an independent researcher looking into family deaths before she spoke.
My brother couldn't swim. He was afraid of water. The police ties said it was room out for an accident, but I know it wasn't.
Do you know anything about a group he was in?
He mentioned it once. He was scared.
Scared of what?
Scared that what he was learning would be used on him.
What exactly did he say?
He said this group has 2 layers. The top is support, the bottom is training. They're training people to leave no trace. I saw their materials. They know I saw.
And then he had an accident.
Yes, 1 week later.
I hung up and sat at my desk. Two members, Ethan and Daniel, had both found the lower layer. Both had been removed. Kay said Ethan had failed the test. Maybe the test was simply, what do you do when you find out the truth? Ethan chose to leave. That was failure. Daniel chose to panic. That was failure too. The ones who passed stayed and kept learning. The ones sitting calmly in that room, maybe they weren't learning how not to hurt people. They were learning how to hurt people and not get caught. Greg wasn't a therapist. He was a coach. I dialed Amy's number again to say something more, but she didn't pick up. Then I hung up. I didn't know if I was saying it for her or for Ethan. I kept going to the group, every Wednesday. I stopped asking about Ethan. I smiled, nodded, took notes. I kept my phone in my pocket recording every single time.
You're settling in well.
I feel like I've found people like me.
It's not about being alike, it's about understanding. Once you understand yourself, you can choose your actions.
I want to learn more.
There's an advanced discussion next week, senior members only. Do you want to come?
Yes.
Then be on time next week, 7 o'clock. Location won't be the community center. I'll send you the address.
He sent the address, a suburban house, standalone, far from the main road. I marked the location on my map, then I called a detective at Boston PD. I knew him from Ethan's accident investigation. Detective, next week I'm going inside what might be a secret organization tied with multiple deaths. I need you on standby outside, ready to move in.
You're sure about this?
I'm sure. My brother wasn't an accident. Daniel Harris wasn't an accident. I need you there.
We'll be on bed before you walk through that door. Send me your location. Be careful.
I hung up and looked out the window. Boston's night was quiet, like nothing was happening. But I knew I was standing on the edge of a cliff, and I was about to walk in. Thursday night, I drove to that suburban house. The house looked ordinary, dark gray, curtains drawn. 5 cars parked outside, none of them Ethan's, but 2 I'd seen at the community center lot. I rang the bell. Greg opened the door, shirt, no tie.
You came. Come in.
In the living room sat a few people. Kay was there, R was there, plus 2 new faces. There was tea and cookies on the table, looked like an ordinary book club. But on the wall hung a whiteboard with these words, trace management, memory distortion.
Today's advanced topic, the post-execution survival cycle. We're discussing how to ensure an action leaves no traceable trail after it's done. This isn't a criminal tutorials, it's a standing how to act perfectly, standing how to control yourself yours perfectly.
Ethan understood it too well, but he didn't understand the cost of exit.
What's the cost of exit?
When you know too much and try to leave, you become an unstable variable. An unstable variable is a loose thread, and loose threads get cleaned up.
Kay laughed at me.
Lena, now that you're in the advanced group, you know this isn't an ordinary support group. Your brother found that out, and he made a different choice. What's your choice?
Greg looked into my eyes. The whole living room was silent as a stopped clock.
You want to learn? Good, but learning requires proof.
I
Sign the...
looked down. It was a non-disclosure agreement. The terms were detailed. No sharing group content with any third party, no recording, no screenshots, legal liability for violations. At the bottom, bold print, signatory confirms voluntary participation in advanced training program with full knowledge of exit protocols. Exit protocols, a gentle word. Ethan had tried to exit, he'd been protocoled.
Can I read it through before signing?
Of course. Take your time.
I read line by line. On the surface, everything was legal, watertight, but the last clause made my blood run cold. If a participant poses an information risk to the group or it's during training, the group reserves the right to initiate a security, no judicial proteview. I gripped the pen. If I didn't sign, I wouldn't walk out tonight. If I did sign, I could stay and see more. I signed.
Welcome. Next session is next Thursday. Topic, elimination of traces.
You signed. You're now a recognized member. That means they trust you, and it means they'll watch you. Don't make a mistake.
Why did you sign back then?
Because I'd be watched either way. At least signing lets me know what they're planning.
The room went quiet. Everyone looked at me.
I choose understanding. I want to learn.
My voice sounded steady when I said it, but under the table my fingers gripping my pants so tight they ached. I'd just told my first lie to them, a fatal one. Do you know why Ethan tried to leave?
He discovered the experimental phase. He said the group wasn't just training theory, they were training for application in real scenarios. Daniel wasn't the first. Ethan found evidence. He wanted to go to the police, but they found out.
How did they find out?
There's surveillance inside the group. Every discussion, every conversation, every expression, it's all recorded. Ethan thought he was discussing to a theory, but he was actually exposing his own plans.
Greg knew what each of us parking lot. Not mind reading, my palm set recording. He archived every word, building a behavioral fingerprint.
By the time Ethan wanted out, his behavioral fingerprint had already betrayed his intentions. Was I being watched too? From week 1. Every question, every silence, every blink, it was all in Greg's files. Suddenly, I felt like the darkness in my rearview mirror was staring back. The next Thursday, the location changed, a basement office, entrance through a fire door in an alley. Inside, a whiteboard, a projector, rows of folding chairs, no windows on the walls.
Tonight's topic, how to make people forget you ever existed when you need to disappear. This is a person's complete footprint. Objective, make him disappear from this footprint within 24 hours, leaving no trace for anyone to follow. You design the plan.
Step 1, create an expectation. You've convinced people are known, period, creating a window where he voluntarily left. Step 3, wipe physical traces. His apartment, banking records, digital footprint.
Good. You've designed a complete disappearance protocol in 5 minutes.
That's the value of training. Once you understand how systems track you, you can systematically
I
evade
wrote
it.
in my notebook, but my hand was shaking. This wasn't theoretical training mission. This was an operation. He went to the police, and then that's why he paired the same way. A car accident, a voluntary departure fiction. The night he never lost control on it all. The brake line had been cut. I'd seen the photo of that brake line in the clean cut, not natural wear. I hadn't thought much of it then. Now I was thinking about something else. Greg had pulled me into the advanced group. He trusted me now. Trusted that I could be trained as an executor. That meant he needed me. And someone who needs me can be used.
I called D again, the second unlabeled number in Ethan's phone. Last time it went unanswered, but this time, after 4 rings when picked up, the voice.
Who's this?
The voice.
My name's was Lena, then Ethan's sister. Are you D?
He told you about me.
He didn't tell me. His call log did. You two talked a lot.
I was Daniel Harris's friend. We were both in the group. Ethan found things out, and then Daniel had his accident. Ethan realized Daniel had been tested. He went to Greg. He asked me if try to leave what happens. I told him, don't.
What did he say?
He said, I already know. And then he died.
They were testing who could execute tasks without leaving traces.
Do you know what they were
They
testing?
used people with antisocial tendencies as a baseline because they naturally lack moral constraint. They filtered for people who could control emotions, plan calmly, ignore pain. I passed the initial streams via track. Ethan passed, but he started questioning. Questioning is the most dangerous.
Where are you?
I can't say, but I'm watching you. Tonight, when you came out of that alley, I was across the street. I left after you got in your car.
He hung up. I sat in my car, looking out through the windshield, empty streets. But he'd been there. He'd been watching me all along, and I'd never noticed. Just like Ethan, he'd been watched too.
The next day, I got an anonymous email. No subject, no signature, just tomorrow at 2 p.m. Bellevue Cemetery, Section D, under the bench. I went. The cemetery was quiet. Oak shadows falling across headstones. The bench in Section D, wood paint peeling. I bent down, look until the silver tape held a key. Ordinary key, like a locker key numbered 17. I searched around the cemetery. No matching locker. At 4 p.m., I went to the bus station, the only place nearby with public lockers. Locker 17. The key opened it. Inside was a manily envelope. It held a copy and a newsletter from New Beginning Support Group 2019 listing the names, codes, and completion stage markings of advanced training members. Next to it, a handwritten red note. Test failed. Another name also read, test in progress. That name was K. Had hidden this file. He didn't know who to give it to, but he knew it needed to be preserved. Now I held it. Name, status, markings. All Ethan's safe had was don't believe anything I told you. And under that bench was everything he couldn't say out loud. I stood in that grimy bus station with the envelope, surrounded by travelers rushing past. No one noticed me. I tucked it into my bag, zipped it shut. Then I walked out. The sun was setting. I found Kay not at the group. I waited for him in the parking lot, got into his car. When he saw me in the passenger seat, his face froze for a beat.
How'd you get in?
You left your door unlocked. I need to talk.
Talk.
Your name is here. Test in progress. You're marked. Kay took the file and looked at it for a few seconds. His face stayed still, but his fingers tightened.
I thought I'd passed.
Pass the test?
I thought I was safe. But being marked as test in progress, it means they're still watching. They haven't decided whether to bring me in or remove me.
What was Ethan marked as?
Stage 4, complete. That's the highest level. He finished all the training, and they still killed him.
Because he wanted to leave?
Because after stage 4, you only have 2 choices. Become one of them or become evidence. Ethan chose the latter.
What are you going to do now?
I need to hide this. Do you have a safer place?
Yeah, my office. A children's welfare agency isn't on their radar.
Then you hold on to it. If I have an accident too, you know who to give it to.
You won't have an accident.
How do you know?
Because I'll be one step ahead of them. I looked at him. Under the streetlight, his eyes were bright, like an animal that had been hunted a long time and had finally found a place to rest, even if just for a moment. I opened the door and got out, didn't look back. I decided to do something inside the group, show my value. Greg needed executors. I'd make him believe I was the best one.
I have an idea about how to apply the training to protect your own interests.
Go on.
If there's a potential unstable element in the group, then it's to make them disappear voluntarily, give them a reason to run, make them believe someone else is on them, and let them front. They play evidence, traces, problems, all of it walks out the door with them.
The room went quiet for 2 seconds. Then Greg smiled. It was the first time I'd seen his real smile, not a therapist's warmth, but a coach's approval.
You came later than your brother, but you learned faster.
I have stronger motivation.
What's the motivation?
Survival.
Today, Lena demonstrated an excellent grasp. This is the direction we're cultivating.
After the session, I walked to my car, closed the door, and gripped the wheel so hard my knuckles went white. Said survival and fooled him. But I'd fooled him using what Ethan had Tombaji was telling me. When a mask slips, thing that disappears is the person where I was pretending to be an emotionless executor, and I was succeeding. That made me more dangerous and closer. The advanced group had a one-on-one coaching session. Members met with Greg individually. When my turn came, I went to his office, not at the community center, but on the 7th floor of an office building. The office was small. 1 desk, 2 monitors, a gray filing.
You've been doing well lately. That insight you showed in the advanced discussion is rare. I want you to consider something. Joining our core execution team.
Core execution team?
We can call it the practice group. What you've learned in training becomes actionable. The goal of action isn't harm, it's eliminating interference. Your brother was eliminated because he became interference. You would be the one eliminating interference.
What kind of tasks?
Nothing specific yet, but you'll have choice. You choose which interference sources to engage. When you're ready, call this number.
I need to think about it.
Of course. Take your time.
I walked out with my hand in my pocket, fingers pressing against the card's edge. I now had a way in. This door could let me see the next plan, the next target sys, the next operation. As the elevator doors closed, I caught my reflection in the metal, calm, like nothing was happening. But my heart was pounding.
That night, a text came from Dee's number. You met with him?
How do you know?
Greg's office is on the 7th floor. I can see the cars coming and going. You parked across the street.
You've been watching Greg? I'm protecting myself. He already knows someone leaked files. If he finds out it's you, you'll be on his next list. I don't. I'm just telling you, you're already close to him. Close enough that he might have memorized your breathing pattern.
He memorized my breathing pattern?
Don't waste his test.
I put down my phone and sat in the dark. My breathing, I'd never paid attention to it. When Ethan was learning control in that group, he'd learned about breathing too. He'd learned deep, slow, even. He didn't know what I was learning, but he'd left me a behind key. It was a message. Don't believe anything I told you. He was protecting me in a way he couldn't say out loud. I closed my eyes and tried to slow my breathing. 1, 2. The way Ethan used to do. The second week of training, Greg announced a practice simulation and the evaluant for core team candidates.
Tomorrow, there will be a scenario. You'll apply what you've learned in a real-world environment. Goal, to produce a person's behavioral footprint within a set time, without contact, without questions.
You have beholders. The report should include the target's psychological routine.
I opened the farget, was a woman in her sitting area, librarian home. She the same root loves, was flawless routine. This wasn't training. This was a pre-assessment for a real operation. The target was a living person. Labeled potential interference without her knowledge. 12 hours of assessment, and then into Greg's files waiting to be removed one day.
I accept the evaluation.
Good. See you tomorrow at 8 p.m.
Did you get a folder?
Yeah, I'm home.
I'm not going to complete it. If you don't complete it, you'll be marked as non-compliant.
That's still better than compliant.
Lena, if you don't do this tonight, they'll make you the next target. You're drawing a line. People who draw lines get moved.
I know. But I'm not trading an innocent woman's data for Greg's trust.
Then you've already passed the test. You chose not to be chosen. That's the choice Ethan made. You're safer than they are.
And more dangerous than him?
Yeah, because you saw the end before he did. Go. Don't go home tonight.
I didn't go home. I went to the Children's Welfare Agency's on-call room, locked the door, and put my phone on the desk. At 2 a.m. I got a text from Greg, executor, and Prodigal Simglitch. Had Ethan the same message? I stared at the screen. Was he sitting somewhere that night reading those same words, and then deciding to take a highway that didn't need brakes? I turned my phone off and put it in a drawer. Then I opened Dee's envelope and took out the list. I circled Ethan's name. I circled Daniel's. Then I drew a triangle next to my own. Test in progress, the mark they'd given K. Now it was my turn. But unlike Kay, I already had my evidence chain ready. At dawn, I called the detective. We need to move the operation up tonight. Greg has an evaluation list. Those people are in danger. I need your arrest team ready.
What did you get?
Psychological assessment folders. They don't have names on them, but they have addresses. You can reach out to the targets before tonight and warn them.
Good. We'll position units near you. Send us the location.
One more thing. Greg has an escape route. If he catches to the arrest before it happens, he'll vanish. He designed the perfect disappearance plan. I have to stay inside until the last step.
Then you'll be the bait for that last step.
I know, I'm ready. I hung up and looked out at the sky brightening. Today might be the last day. I went to this week's practice review session. Greg was there, Kay was there, R was there. When I walked in, no one looked at me, but I knew they all knew. The exit protocols were in motion. Tonight might be the last time. Not the end of the group, but the end of me.
You've mastered the training. The evaluation results don't matter. What matters is which side you choose.
Lena, you chose not to submit the evaluation. That's one answer. Now you're getting another.
The room was silent except for the AC hum. I knew the detective was outside. I knew I had the recording in my pocket. But I also knew Greg knew that. His trace management training included how to erase all evidence before being caught. If he walked away right now, I couldn't catch him. Greg, if I were you, I'd handle the files in that cabinet first. Those are marked. They'll be found.
You're helping me?
I'm helping you eliminate that set of evidence. It's the only way to keep everything safe.
You're suggesting I destroy the files?
I'm suggesting you let me handle them. You never touch them. I hold them. If something goes wrong, you know nothing.
You're smarter than your brother.
He placed a key on the table, the filing cabinet key. I picked it up. My fingers didn't shake. 6 weeks of work. And this was the final step. I walked to the cabinet, inserted the key, turned it, pulled it open. Inside were over 40 folders, each with a name on it. Ethan, Daniel, K, R, and my own name. Behind each name, assessment reports, behavioral pattern analysis, risk ratings. Exit observation period, that was the 3 weeks before he died. They were watching to see if he'd act. Did he act? Did he go to the police? Or did he just tell me? I don't know, but I know he was marked, he was followed, and then on a rainy night he was sent onto that curve. I pulled the entire drawer out and held it against my chest. I'm taking these.
No, you can't.
Yes, I can. You gave me the key. It's mine now.
You won't walk out of this room.
I already have.
I turned and walked toward the door. Light at the end of the hall, the door was open. The detective stood there, 4 officers behind him.
You've been recording?
I started recording on day 1.
The detectives' team cleared the entire group site in 3 minutes. When they cuffed Greg, he didn't say a word. He just looked at me like he was studying a finished product. His training had failed, but he wanted to know why.
When did you start planning this?
The day you called and said there was no record of you told me. He existed, and you were erasing him.
You're not antisocial, you've been faking.
Yes. I pretended to be the perfect executor you needed. You couldn't spot me because you taught how to spot fakes, but you never learned to spot a faker's faker.
He was pushed into the Kruber. K and R were taken in for questioning, but the detective confirmed they were witnesses, not suspects. He tried to exit, he didn't succeed, but I finished what he started. The cruisers drove off, taillights fading at the corner. I looked down on Ethan's name ding into my arms. I stood there, the wind blowing, Woj of the cry, but the tear gun didn't come. I held those files and walked back to my car. At home, I spread the 40 folders across the dining table in 4 rows. Each one was a psychological evaluation. Each one had a living person's name on it. Some of them were Greg's pending execution list. They did a whole night reading Ethan's file. There was more inside than I had expected. Handwritten notes, behavior reports, 2 photos. One taken early in his participation, calm expression. The other taken a week before he left, profile. Eyes looking sideways like he knew someone was photographing him. That was me. Had something written in his hand, but in this file he'd written, I hope she finds it. He hadn't just left a warning, he'd left evidence. He knew I'd come. I folded that page and put it in my notebook. The other folders I hand over to the detective as formal evidence. As I left, I watched him pack them into evidence boxes and seal them. They were no longer a family secret, they were public record. Back home, I took that page out of my notebook and looked at it for a long. His pencil handwriting was a little smudged, like his hand had been shaking when he wrote it. I pressed it to my chest and stood there for a while. Kay sat in the interrogation room for 4 hours. I waited for him on the hallway bench. When he came out, he was pale, but not shaken.
They questioned me for 5 hours.
How much did you tell them?
Except your part. I didn't mention your undercover work.
You could have.
I didn't. You walked in on your own. My testimony didn't get you in. You don't need me to confirm that.
Are they giving you witness protection?
Yeah. New address, new identity. I relocate in 3 months. Greg's lawyers might come after me, but I'm not planning to stay in this state.
You could choose to stay.
I choose to disappear. That's the last thing I learned. Disappearing is safer than fighting. I used to think I could fight, but Ethan proved the cost of that. You're different. You chose to fight, and you won.
You don't have to. You just need to live.
Your brother lives in you. I see it.
Then he left. I sat in the hallway, an empty coffee cup beside me. Outside, the sky was starting to lighten. Kay chose to vanish. Ethan chose to fight. I chose to fight, but I was also disappearing. New name, new identity, new number. I won one before I went dark. I stood up, stretched my stiff neck, and walked out of the station. Sunlight hit my face, a little harsh. Greg's trial came 4 months later. The prosecutor presented copies of all 40 folders, 18 full audio recordings, including Daniel Harris and Ethan Morey. Forensics found a tiny but traceable fracture on the brake line of Ethan's car, not natural wear, it had been cut. That finding changed the whole case, from traffic accident to homicide. Greg didn't mount a defense.
I designed a system. I didn't force anyone to participate. They came willingly. They chose to understand and then to practice.
And Daniel Harris?
He was a test. He failed.
And Ethan Morris?
He was an exit. Exit is failure.
What you did wasn't training, it was screening, removing those who couldn't execute.
Greg didn't answer.
He was convicted of 3 counts of second-degree murder, 21 counts of conspiracy. I sat in the last row until everyone left, then I stood up and walked out. It was raining when I stepped outside. I stood under the awning watching the rain run down the steps. Ethan's lawyer had held a will. He'd never told me about it. The will said, give the safe key to Lena, she'll understand what's inside. He'd planned everything. The folder, the key, the note. He knew he might be in danger. He'd left a trail for anyone who came looking. His legacy was more than I'd expect, not just the apartment and the dog, but shares in a small architecture firm. I sold the shares and put the money into a newly created fund. I called it the Ethan Morrow Family Support Line. The first voicemail was mine. Hello, this is Lena. If you think your family member is involved in something you don't understand, you can call this number. Hello?
My son. He's in a group. He won't tell me what it's about, but I found his notebook. There were words in it that scared me.
Would you tell me the words?
Trace management, behavioral substitution, disappearance strategies.
Where is your son?
He lives with me. He won't let me in his room. But I went in once.
You did the right thing. I'll help you. I hung up and wrote the first case number in my log. Ethan's name was on the whiteboard on the wall, under Founder. He hadn't just left a key, he'd left a thread. The woman's name was Martha. Her son Gary was 23, in a group called Horizon. I recognized the patterns, recruitment style, language system, progression steps. It matched Greg's blueprint.
We're tracking them. If you get anything new, send it straight over.
I need photos of your son's sketchbook when he goes out. Don't let him know.
He won't suspect. He thinks I don't understand anything.
You do understand. What you're doing right now, that's reading him.
She sent the photos. The vocabulary in that notebook matched Ethan's files almost exactly. Gary was in stage 2. He hadn't been evaluated as an executor, but he was moving in that direction. I reached out to local law enforcement in that city and sent them copies of the notes.
Gary left the group.
He left?
He said they stopped contacting me. He doesn't know why. I do. It was you.
You made the call, I just answered.
The person who answers, sometimes they're the only one who can catch what's falling. I hung up and stood by the window for a moment. A bird flew past outside. I thought about Ethan. If someone had caught him back then, would he have ever taken that highway?
The hotline had been running for 1 year. We'd received 122 calls from parents, partners, friends. The groups they described had 7 different names. 3 were confirmed linked to Greg's organization. The other 4 were imitations. We logged every call, archived by regions. No names used that data to track 12 potential training groups. 4 were formally investigated. I sat in my office and wrote a passage in the annual report. You don't need every printed on the Hot Roads outreach cards. Those words from another state sent back a postcard. I pinned that postcard to the wall, next to Ethan's photo. And next to that, a picture of Archie. I looked at him every day. I'd never dealt with Ethan's apartment. The lease was still active. The landlord had asked twice if I wanted to renew. I went there and sat on the couch with Archie lying beside me, his dog now mine. On the coffee table sat a book he'd been reading halfway through, dog-ebbed, at page 87. I flipped to it, a section on moral intuition. Ethan didn't have a built-in moral compass. He had to learn to distinguish right from wrong almost scientifically. In that group he learned to control impulses. I closed the book and set it on the table. Archie stood up, walked to the door and waited. I picked up his leash and took him out. The wind hit me on the street. Autumn was coming to not fast but purposeful. I remembered how Ethan used to walk him always slow like he was thinking. Now I was walking the same path. The hotline's second year brought a particular call. A man 42 years old said he'd once been a member of a training group. He'd left years ago without retaliation, but he'd been monitoring the group's activities ever since.
It's not what they're doing, psychological profiles. They record every member's weaknesses, desires, fears, and when they need to, they use those files to control them.
How long were you in the group?
2 years. I didn't make it to the execution phase. I left after stage 2. But while I was there, I compiled a lot of files.
You kept those files?
I didn't destroy them. I hid them somewhere.
Can you send them to me?
I don't trust mail. Come get them. I'm in Philadelphia. Come alone.
I went to Philadelphia. I met him a hat in an old cafe.
He pushed in his 40s, wearing envelope across the table. Inside, copies of a dozen psychological profiles, names, addresses, vulnerability lists, every one of them a key. How did you leave without being eliminated?
Because I was invisible. In the group, I never spoke, never asked, never left an impression. People who leave no impression don't get marked.
Why speak up now?
Because I saw Ethan Morey's name in the news. I thought his name would never be public. But it was. His sister did that. You're his sister too. I'm his kind. You're not. You're braver.
I walked out of that cafe with the envelope. Philadelphia's streets were old, the streetlights dim. I thought, do I deserve the word brave? I just didn't have any other choice. The Philadelphia files went to the FBI. I kept 1 copy in my office. Among the names, 2 were later confirmed as members of Greg's splinter cells. Another name, the person herself called me 3 days later. She'd received an anonymous letter warning her that her file had been react. But maybe the man in the hat, maybe someone else. But the chain was complete. The information reached who it needed to reach. In the hotline's 3rd year, I expanded our services. Besides taking calls from families, we also accepted anonymous file missions from former members. Submission methods: email, encrypted upload, postal box. I didn't ask where it came from. I just confirmed it got through. From a former mentor and Felician and then from Nice. We practicalized happened itself weapon, and Ethan had left that weapon to me. After Greg's arrest, some members of his organization received lighter sentences. A man named Curtis, a former stage 3 trainee, turned state's witness and provided extensive internal details.
We were trained not to ask why, only how. We were ordered not to answer, but he kept asking. He asked for 3 weeks. Then he was marked for exit observation. A week later, he had an accident. Do you think it was an accident? No. I think it was execution.
Curtis got 7 years, reduced to 4 for cooperation. When he got out, he contacted the hotline and asked if he could volunteer.
You want to help people now?
I don't want anyone else to be executed. I know how it starts. I want to stop it before it starts.
He became the hotline's first operator with lived experience. When he took calls, his voice was steady. He'd tell the callers, "I know the language they speak, I can translate it for you." I listened to his calls from the next thought Ethan had needed a translator like that once, but Ethan never got one. In its 4th year, the hotline expanded to 3 cities, Boston, Philly, Chicago. Each had a local coordinator managing calls, case files, just phone numbers and encrypted email. The Philly Publirzenza received a case. A teenager had found his brother's notebook. That notebook contained training plans and target lists. He reported it to the police. The investigation confirmed a training group forming nearby. Early intervention, not post-discovery. Pre-discovery identification, the coordinator wrote in her monthly summary. He'd say, "Someone's doing what I wanted to do." He'd left a key, and that key didn't just open a safe, it opened a network. Sat in my office, Issa smiled side lookable left corners. I was sent it was in the finding numbly marked in red dots. On Ethan's birthday, I went to his grave. Archie sat beside me, his head on my knee. I didn't bring flowers, just that book he'd been reading, the one with the dog-eared page, and added one more note in pencil underneath his. "Your choice left a path, someone's walking it." Then I placed the book in front of his headstone. "Here, finish it." The wind was strong, flipping a few pages before the book fell closed. I stood up. Archie stood with me. I didn't look back when we left. I visited my brother today. He used to be in a group. I saw your page. I just wanted to make his fighting to say ask thick. Thank you, brother. I didn't call fix. I just archived it. It was a message that the night quiet had a reply. It was telling someone received an invisible gift on his birthday. Someone had started asking questions because of him. In the 4th year's autumn, I got a postcard, no name, postmarked from the West Coast. I didn't recognize the handwriting, but I recognized the message. No name on the card, just the hotline address. It could only be from one person. Kay had found a way to disappear, not forced, voluntary, quiet. His choice. I pinned the postcard to my office wall next to the copy of Ethan's file. 2 things side by side, one a relic of choosing to fight, one proof of choosing to leave, what they shared. I stared at that postcard for a long time. The seaside wood wheelchairs, quiet days. It was a life I knew it existed, and someone was living it. That made me think some endings could be good. Martha's son Gary, our first case, sent a letter to the hotline in year 5. The return address wasn't Martha's, it was his new place. I emailed him back, short. Yes, send it. A month later, his draft arrived. 50 pages, citing 42 cases, public, anonymous, and ones he'd found indirectly through me. On the final page he wrote, "The recruited aren't bad people. They just stopped at a crossroads where they needed answers." Another way, he'd found it, the paper, put it in a folder and placed that was that next to Ethan, given him. I imagined Gary sitting in a classroom, listening, writing. He'd taken the other path. Year 10. The hotline had taken over 300 calls, archived over 340 police operations, and helped intercept 5 forming organizations. I was still running it. I hadn't changed my name, hadn't moved. Archie was gone now, but his photo still sat on the office windowsill. Every day at 10 a.m., I opened my computer and processed new messages. At 3 p.m., I archived. At 7 p.m., I turned off the lights. 10 years, long enough for a person to go from knowing nothing to knowing too much. Long enough for a thread to go from a safe to a nationwide network. Long enough for a question to go from "don't believe anything I told you" to "do you believe what you see?" I placed a grandmother's recipe, dead letters, a coat pocket, a rideshare review, and my brother's safe on the same line. They weren't stories about crime, they were stories about information being pulled out of darkness. Someone left something. Someone found it. I was the latter. So was Ethan. I stood at the window, watching people pass on the street. They had no idea what had happened in this room. But I knew. Every person who walked by might be carrying a key. This morning the hotline received a message. A woman's voice, young, soft, hesitant.
"I want to tell you he wasn't a bad person. He was scared back then. He knew you'd use it."
The message ended. I saved it. I didn't call back. She told me one thing. Ethan had said before he died, "I want to protect someone." That someone was me. But he couldn't save himself. That made everything else happen. She'd let but had gone cemetery bench, a parking lot conversation. Now it had passed through her voice, and stopped here. I turned off the recording and opened the window. Autumn wind blew in from the street, cold, carrying the smell of fallen leaves. On my desk sat a new notebook, blank, nothing written in it yet. On the first page I'd taped a copy of Ethan's handwriting. I closed the notebook and put it in the drawer. I'd write again tomorrow.